Hey everybody, you're watching IC109. I'm Larry Wiggs. And now, if you go to the IC109 store online, you can check out my stickers. IC109 right here, California 109, y'all. Now, if you don't like that one, you can check out this one, IC109 California Interstate 109 right there, okay? Or you could check out this one right here, IC109. Yo, check out IC109 store on the internet today and get your sticker, 10.99.
Yo veo 109.
Welcome to IC109. I'm going to run down some stories for you today. All right. Now, what does 109 mean? Well, it's a reference to my birthday, October 9th. Okay. Now, let's continue. The first time I called the spirits of 109 was in 2007 when I made my car license plate, a personalized license plate, 109 LAW2. It's my birthday and it's also my initials. All right. I left Los Angeles and I moved to South Korea in 2007. And I didn't know what to expect. It was just a new experience for me. And I flew all the way across the world to South Korea. Now, in 2007, my birthday came around in October. And I was ready to celebrate my birthday. But in South Korea, no one knew my birthday was 10/9. And in fact, my birthday is actually a national holiday, Hangul Proclamation Day. So I had to learn very quickly that the Koreans celebrated Hangul Proclamation Day and not my birthday. Cool. On my birthday, every year thereafter, it was a holiday. So I had the day off. So that was a pretty cool little moment of synchronization for me. I have a story to tell you about 2015 when I was in South Korea. I had just returned to the city of Busan where I was about to take a train back to my home. I purchased my ticket and then my seat assignment was in row 10. Now I thought that was a pretty cool little coincidence because it was actually around October 6th when I went on a weekend trip to Japan and I was actually coming back. Those are some important details. But it was just 3 days before my birthday and I was assigned a seat in row 10. And I thought that was the coolest little coincidence and another moment of synchronicity in South Korea. In 2013, I traveled to Japan. I'm skipping around with these time frames if you notice. That story about Busan and the train, that happened in 2013. Now, in 2015 in Korea. In 2013 in Japan, all right, I traveled to Tokyo for the very first time. And I went to the mall, Shibuya Ichimaru-Q. Now, Ichimaru-Q means 109. I knew it was there. I wasn't surprised when I saw it, but there was a feeling of comfort when I saw that mall, Shibuya Ichimaru-Q. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that happened in 2014 and then again in 2015. I just want you to remember these points that I'm raising. All right. In 2014, I traveled to Nagasaki, Japan. Now, if you know anything about the history of Japan, you know that in Nagasaki, that's where they dropped the atomic bomb. Now, I traveled to Nagasaki in 2014, and then I traveled to Hiroshima in 2015. Now, Hiroshima is also another city where they dropped the bombs on the Japanese. Well, by we, I mean the Americans. We dropped the bombs on the Japanese. Now, in 2015, I traveled to Peru for the first time. I'll spare you the details, but the way that I got to Peru was wild because I was actually in the air when I got the job and when I got notification that I would be flying next to Peru. It was bizarre. But I got to Peru in 2015. I worked there for 2 weeks and I did not see Machu Picchu. I wanted to visit Machu Picchu, but there wasn't enough time. So just put a pin in that story. I'll come back to it later. 2015, I visited the Philippines. And what was interesting about that trip is that 2015 was the year of the ram. Now, it's the year of the ram, it's the year of the goat, the year of the lamb, the year of the sheep. Okay, whatever you want to call it, it was that year. That's my birth year. So it was another moment of synchronicity, all right? Especially when I was hiking up the mountain. It was the volcano that I was hiking up with other travelers. It was a tourist location. I hiked up the mountain, and guess what we saw? It was a goat, basically a ram, a sheep, a lamb, whatever you want to call it. That's what we saw. Another moment of synchronicity. So that was a pretty auspicious year for me because I had traveled to 7 countries and I had never traveled that much ever in my life until that year. So things started to change for me. By 2016, I moved to Saudi Arabia. Now things were going to change for me even more because the number of countries that I was going to travel to, well, that was just going to skyrocket. By 2017, I traveled to 17 countries. All right. Let me tell you about 5 of those countries. Ethiopia. Traveled to Ethiopia in 2017. Now, the story that I have about 10-9 in Ethiopia, I was walking down the hallway, and to the left, there was a door, and that door had written on it 109. Now, I didn't write that, someone else did, and I was just curious, who wrote that? Why did they write that? And I didn't get an answer until maybe 2 years later. Apparently, a teacher had a class and he wrote that so that his students would know, hey, that's where my professor's office is, something like that. So I saw 10-9 in Ethiopia. 2017, I traveled to Cuba. I went to Cuba and I grabbed a book about one of the Cuban leaders of the revolution, Che Guevara. Within the first few pages of reading that book, I realized, or rather I learned, that Che died on 10-9 in 1967, October 9th, 1967. In that moment, I thought, man, this is wild that I keep finding these numbers, 10-9, no matter where I go in the world. And there I was in Cuba, but it wasn't just Cuba, it was the Cuban revolutionary leader, Che Guevara, who had a connection to 10-9. I thought that was pretty cool. After Cuba, I went to Mexico, and then I visited Frida Kahlo's home, Casa Azul. It's a museum for Frida Kahlo. It's where she lived, it's where she was born, and where she died. On my way there, the Uber driver was listening to radio station 100.9. Another coincidence. I thought, wow, what's going on here? But the coincidences with Frida didn't stop there with the Uber driver and that radio station. No, I came back to Los Angeles after the trip and my sister called me and I answered the phone and I had purchased 4 postcards of Frida Kahlo, all with her portrait on them. And they were sitting on a table. And when my sister called, I was standing just in front of that table. So my sister asked me, "Oh, you're back from your trip to Mexico?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, did you go to Frida Kahlo's home?" Now, when she asked me that, I looked down at the table. I looked down at those 4 pictures of Frida looking back at me, and I thought, "Whoa, Frida's looking at me. My sister's asking me about Frida. Like, how is this happening?" Okay, it was kind of a spooky moment. We hung up the phone. We said our goodbyes. We hung up the phone. I took a nap for a couple of hours. I woke up. I checked my phone, and I was scrolling through Instagram when I noticed someone had posted a picture of Frida Kahlo. When I saw that picture, I thought, wait a minute, here's another moment where I see Frida in the same day. I look at the caption and it says, "Happy birthday, Frida." And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is just too wild. So I called my sister back. I said, hey, when we were talking on the phone earlier, did you know it was Frida Kahlo's birthday? And my sister said, no, I had no idea. That was July 6th, 2017. I know that because Frida's birthday is July 6th, 1907. Peru. I got to Peru in 2017, 2 years after my first visit, and I hiked up Machu Picchu this time. I got to Machu Picchu, and you know what time it was when I got there? It was 10:09 a.m. Just another coincidence. Now, after all of these coincidences around the world, I was exhausted. I was like, what's happening? How come I keep seeing these numbers? What's going on? And then I flew back to the desert, the sandbox, as it were, Saudi Arabia, Dammam. I had just gotten off the plane and I was exhausted from seeing 10-9 everywhere. I was waiting for my taxi and I was matched with the taxi that had license plate number 10-9. All right, so those are some stories from 2007 to 2017 related to IC 10-9. I'm Larry Wiggs. Thanks for listening.
October 9th. That's where it starts.
You see, it's the same old thing.